Hello guys, this is Pavitra joining you from Bangalore. So I have launched this new booktube channel called Reading Books. So what this channel is all about, so basically booktube is a YouTube channel where you discuss anything and everything about books. And the reason for me starting this channel is because I do not have many friends with whom I can discuss about books. So I hope this would be a great platform for me to get book recommendations and also provide recommendations to fellow readers like you. So that's the purpose, and today's video is about the my favorite books of 2017. So 2017 was a great reading year for me. I read a total of about 25 books, mostly fiction, and barring a couple of them, I enjoyed almost all the books. So it was like quite difficult for me to shortlist my favorite 5 books of last year, and I would like to get into each of those and tell you why those are my favorite books. Yeah, so let's get started then. Okay, so the first book about which I'm going to talk about today is this one. It's called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by the author Stieg Larsson. Now this book forms part of a trilogy. So there are 3 books basically: The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. Okay, so it forms a part of the Millennium Trilogy. Now a little bit about the author Stieg Larsson. So these books actually he had written prior to 2004, and he had just handed over the books, the manuscripts for publishing to a Swedish publisher, and soon after handing over the manuscripts he died unexpectedly. So he couldn't live to see the kind of phenomenon his books have become. Okay, so these books have become such a rage in the book lovers community, and so much so that there have been 2 more books that have been released after the Millennium Trilogy by some other author. Okay, so that's about it. Now moving to this book in detail. So this is about a girl called Lisbeth Salander. She's the protagonist. She is in her 20s. Now Lisbeth is actually a genius security specialist. She's a genius computer hacker. She works for someone, and she gets hired by this person called Michael Blomquist, who runs a magazine, an investigative journalist he is. He gets hired by Henrik Wanger, who's an industrialist, and the reason he gets hired is because there has been a murder in his family so many years back of a kid. Henrik Wanger wants to find out who murdered the kid. So he hires Michael Blomquist because he's into investigative journalism, who in turn hires Lisbeth Salander. Now how these two get together and solve the mystery is all the story is about, and it's set in Stockholm. Now a little bit into the character of Lisbeth. She is a very strong character, and she is a little different from the usual girls in a way, the way she dresses up, the way she talks to people and stuff. But she is such a badass character actually. And also I would like to give away a little bit of spoiler. I mean, it comes in the first 25% of the book. The reason I'm going to give away this spoiler is for you to understand that how great the book is. So what happens is Lisbeth Salander actually is proven to be incompetent, and because of which she has a guardian assigned to her. Now the first guardian of hers is like very good and very nice and kind to her, but the next guardian who's assigned to her, because the earlier guardian falls ill, is kind of takes advantage of her situation. Now she has to keep approaching him for meeting her monthly expenses, and what happens is in between he kind of takes advantage of this situation and tries to sexually assault her. So, so after that, the way she takes revenge of that guy, oh my god, it's so stunning. It just totally blew my mind away. You have to read the book to understand the way she deals with the various characters in her life. So that's just a part of it, and later there are a lot of plots wherein her character evolves in a very brilliant manner. Now for those of you who don't want to read this book, there is a movie by this name, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. It was the Swedish movie, and there is an English one as well. But I would really suggest you read the book. But for those who are like kind of lazy to read this fat book, go ahead and watch the movie. But let me tell you that the book is definitely better than the movie. Yeah, and I'm sure that it just gets interesting as you turn the pages. So please go ahead and grab a copy of this. Yeah, so that's for you, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. So the next book that I'm going to talk about is this one, The Wrath and the Dawn by the author Reni Ade. So this book was published in the year 2015. So this one is about a king, an 18-year-old king called Khalid. Now he's kind of a monstrous king because he marries a new girl every day, and the next day he kind of sends her to be murdered. So that's pretty much the plot. Now there is this lady called Shehzad, who's the protagonist. She's a 16-year-old girl. She volunteers to get married to this monstrous king. Now why does she do that? Because one of her very good friends gets married to him and is murdered. So she marries him to take revenge. Now what she does is like every night she kind of comes up with a new situation, a new story, a new plot, so that her murder gets postponed. So that's what she keeps doing so that she doesn't get murdered. Now what happens to her eventually is what the story is all about, but does she get murdered or not, or what happens to both of them. Also an interesting part about this book is that she kind of initially hates him to the core because obviously her friend was murdered by him, and eventually when she gets to know as to why he's been doing this, she kind of falls for him, and the both of them get quite intimate. But there are certain situations that crop up between them, and because of which things are not all that great. So it's a light read, and it's quite an interesting read. I suggest all of you to grab a copy of this. So this book is actually a retelling of an old book called 1001 Nights, and there is a sequel to this one, and it's called The Rose and the Dagger, that was published in the year 2016. I'm yet to read the sequel to this book, and I will leave a book review of that one as well whenever I'm done with it. So the next book that I'm going to talk to you about is this one, that is Half of a Yellow Sun by the author Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She is a Nigerian author, and she has written about the war times in the 1960s, but the Nigerian Biafran War. So that's what it is about. I shortlisted this as one of my favorite books for this year because this is the first time I'm reading about a war story, and this gets into the nitty-gritties of the difficulties that you need to deal with at war times. So the plot is primarily about two sisters and how their lives get intertwined during the war times. So there is, the book talks about love, about status, about misery, about loyalties being tested. So there is a lot of emotions that get involved across the characters, and each of the characters are so strongly described that I just love the writing style. Okay, now let me get into the synopsis for you. I'll just read it up for you. In 1960s Nigeria, Ogwu, a poor boy from a village, goes to work for Odenigbo, a radical university professor. Soon they are joined by Olana, a young woman who has abandoned a life of privilege to live with her charismatic lover, who's Odenigbo. Into their world comes Richard, an English writer who has fallen for Olana's sharp-tongued twin sister Canon. But when the shocking horror of civil war engulfs the nation, their loves and loyalties are severely tested while their lives pull apart and collide once again in ways none of them could have imagined. So that's the plot. Also, there are a couple of twists in the book, in the second half of the book actually. I would suggest each of you to read the book. There's also a movie by the same name which I'm yet to watch. I will be watching that pretty soon. Now, one of my favorite characters of this book is the character which is least talked about, that is Canon. Her character is so strong. She's very bold and has this great attitude, but it's you know, I just loved her character because she speaks her mind, and her thinking is like quite different from the other characters of the book. So so that's for you guys. Please go ahead and read this one, and I'm like dying to read the next one, which is Americana, because you know, all these books are kind of like really famous in the booktubers community. Yeah. So the next book that I'm going to talk to you about is this one. This is The Girl on the Train by the author Paula Hawkins. So this book was published in the year 2016. It's become like quite famous after it got published, and there is also a book by this name. Now coming to the plot of this book, the protagonist is Rachel. Now her life is kind of disastrous because her professional life isn't going great, and she has a drinking problem, and she is divorced, and she's lonely most of the time. So that's the character of Rachel. Now there are four other characters who are involved in this plot in the story. One being Megan and Scott, the couple. So basically Rachel comes across Megan and Scott when she takes the train from her house to her workplace. So the train stops at a particular station, and that's when every day she kind of observes their lives and tries to become a part of their lives. Basically she imagines herself to be there, so she is like very much a part of their lives in her imaginary world. She kind of observes them on a daily basis. And the next two characters are again a couple, and that's Rachel's ex-husband, that is Tom, and ex-husband's wife, Anna. So the entire story is about these five characters, and also there is a tragedy that happens in Megan and Scott's life, and how Rachel gets involved in it and how she tries solving that is what the entire story is all about. Now this book, I thoroughly enjoyed it because there is so much of suspense involved in it, and so much of thrilling plots. So I really liked the book, I really enjoyed reading it. But coming to the movie, I was seriously disappointed. I kind of slept off halfway through the movie, and it doesn't live up to its expectations at all. So that's about it. I would suggest each of you to read this book. Also, there is another book by the same author. It's called Into the Waters, and that was released in last year, that is 2017. So that's about this book, guys. A Girl on the Train by the author Paula Hawkins. So the next book that I'm gonna talk about is by an Indian author, and it's a set of 3 books actually, so it's a trilogy. It's called the Stranger series by an Indian author, Navneet Chakrabarti. So I'll just show it to you. The first book is Marry Me Stranger, and the second one is All Yours Stranger, and the third one is Forget Me Not Stranger, and it's by the author Navneet Chakrabarti. So these books basically are about this girl Rivana Banerjee. She's the protagonist of this trilogy. She is a young female, about 23 years, and she moves to Bombay from Calcutta in search of a job. She's landed up with a job offer in Bombay. She moves there, and she kind of settles down in Bombay, and she has an amazing life. She has good flatmates, she has a boyfriend over there, she finds a boyfriend over there, and she has a good work as well. So she is kind of living a happy life, but what happens is eventually she realizes that there is someone who is tracking every move of hers. Okay, so that's the story all about. Now she doesn't know who this what this person is, whether that person is a male or a female, or if it is a person at all, or if she's imagining, or is it her flatmate, or is it some sort of a ghost who's tracking her. So that's like, because every move of hers is being tracked throughout the story, and so that's what it is about. So the entire story is about finding out who's tracking her, and how is she kind of related to the spirit or the person who is tracking her, and how her past also gets involved in this thing. So actually it's a bit of a thriller and a horror genre. And for the first time, let me tell you, I was actually scared as in when I was turning the pages and reading more and more. It's quite gripping, but it's quite scary as well at the same time. And these books can be finished pretty soon. Like I finished them in about a week's time. So yeah, this is the first time I was getting scared, and I thoroughly enjoyed this trilogy. So the Stranger series, guys, please go ahead and read it. I'm sure you will find it definitely worthy enough, and I'm like really excited to read the other books by the same author. Yeah, so that's the last book in my favorite books of 2017. So happy reading, guys, and if you like this video, then please like it. and subscribe to my channel. I will be coming up with a lot more videos, and I will ensure that I upload videos related to books on a regular basis. And of course, if you had a great reading year in 2017, then I request each of you to comment below with the favorites of last year. I would love to see your favorite books of 2017. Thank you guys. This is Pavitra Polraj signing off from Bangalore.